Most people do not need to be forced to obey. They volunteer. They sign the papers. They stay late. They agree to things that drain their time, money, and self-respect, and they defend those choices as if nobody pushed them at all. That is how real control works. It does not look like a threat. It looks like your own decision. There are 7 psychological triggers that turn strong, independent minds into reliable yes machines. These triggers are not random tricks. They are built into how the human brain saves energy, keeps social peace, and avoids danger. Researchers have tested them in labs. Sales teams polish them in scripts. Cults use them to keep members loyal, and toxic partners use them to slowly erase boundaries. You feel like you are acting freely. In reality, your reactions are being called up like a program. The most uncomfortable part is this: you already respond to these triggers. You have been following them since childhood. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You stayed quiet when you knew something was wrong. You went along because something in you cared more about being consistent, polite, grateful, or accepted than about being free. That is what manipulators count on. They do not need to crush your will. They only need to tilt it. This is not about turning you into a paranoid person who sees mind control in every conversation. It is about creating a small gap between the trigger and your response. A gap wide enough to ask a simple question: did I choose this, or was this chosen for me? Once that question shows up automatically, your mind stops being easy prey. The first 2 triggers you are going to see are simple: tiny yeses that train your identity, and giant asks that turn your guilt against you. You have already fallen for both. You probably still are. After you see how they work, you will also see something else. Many of the people who use these tactics do not even realize what they are doing. They are just repeating what once worked on them. Power spreads like that, quietly. Foot in the door. Training your identity with tiny yeses. In 1966, social psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser ran a study that exposed a strange weakness in ordinary people. They first asked homeowners to agree to a very small, harmless request, like placing a tiny sticker in their window supporting safe driving. Many agreed because it seemed simple and polite. Later, a different person came back and asked some of those same homeowners to put a giant, ugly sign in their front yard with a similar message. The sign was large enough to ruin how the house looked. Logic suggests that most people would refuse, yet a surprising number said yes. Not because the sign was attractive, not because they loved the cause. They did it because they had already agreed to the small sticker. Their own past behavior pushed them into a bigger sacrifice. This effect is called the foot in the door. The trick is not about the request itself. It is about the identity that builds quietly behind it. When you agree to something small, your brain does not like to see that act as random. It wants a story, so it creates one. I am helpful. I am cooperative. I support this cause. I am the kind of person who goes along. Now that identity sits in your mind like a silent rule. The next time a related request appears, saying no feels less like refusing a stranger and more like breaking your own rule about who you are. Manipulators understand this deeply, even if they have never heard of the study. A controlling boss starts small. Can you stay just an extra 15 minutes today? You agree. It feels normal. Next week, could you stay an extra hour? You already see yourself as committed and reliable at work, so you do it. A month later, can you come in on Saturday just this once? The same pattern continues. Take this home, cover for this person, run this extra task. Each time you agree, you tell yourself a story about being loyal, hardworking, or a team player. You are not just doing favors anymore. You are protecting your own self-image. In relationships, it looks even more innocent. A partner asks, "Can you cancel your plan tonight? I had a bad day." You say yes. It sounds caring. Next time, "Can you stop hanging out with that friend? They give me a bad feeling." Then, "Can you check in with me every hour when you go out?" Then, "Can you stop talking about certain topics because they make me uncomfortable?" None of these requests alone seems like a prison, but each small compliance becomes a brick, and with each brick, Your identity shifts a little closer to "I am someone who sacrifices my needs for this person." By the time the demands become unreasonable, your mind does not see it as brainwashing. It sees it as staying true to the person you have become. Cognitive dissonance theory, studied by Leon Festinger, explains the engine behind this. The mind hates conflict between actions and self-image. If your behavior clashes with how you see yourself, you feel tension. To reduce that tension, you adjust your beliefs until they fit your actions. If you did a favor for someone you barely know, your brain may quietly conclude, "I must like them." If you spent hours helping a cause that barely affects you, the mind tells itself, "This must be important to me." So after you say a small yes, your beliefs move in the direction of that yes. The next time, the same kind of request feels more natural, less questionable. Your story has caught up with your actions. A skilled manipulator uses this like a slow tightening leash. They start with something nobody would resist. "Can you do me a tiny favor, since you are good with this?" It costs almost nothing, so you comply. Later, "Could you just look over this document? You are so reliable." Then, "Can you handle this for me? I trust you more than others." By now, your identity is loaded. You see yourself as helpful, reliable, trustworthy in their eyes. To protect that image, you agree to more, give more, absorb more. You tell yourself that you are choosing this, but the choice is already tilted by your need to stay consistent. The danger shows up when the requests become extreme. "Lend me money even though it makes you uncomfortable. Lie to cover for me. Keep quiet about what you saw. Agree to something that crosses your moral line." At that stage, most people expect resistance. They imagine they will suddenly grow a backbone and refuse. But if the foot in the door has been working for months or years, your self-image is already programmed. "I am loyal to this person. I stand by this team. I am not someone who creates trouble." Saying no will not just upset them. It will shake who you believe you are. That is the dark beauty of this tactic. By the time you reach the big, dangerous yes, nobody is forcing you. There is no gun, no screaming threat. There is only a quiet inner voice saying, "This is what someone like you does." Someone else wrote that script for you. One harmless favor at a time. The only real defense is to notice the pattern early. Pay attention when you feel pushed to protect an image of yourself more than your actual values. When you hear your mind say things like, "I have already done so much for them. I have to keep going." Stop. Ask, "Did I decide this path because it fits my long-term standards? Or did I slide into it because I kept trying to be consistent?" That pause is your way of pulling your foot back out of the door before it closes on you. 2. Door in the face. Weaponizing your guilt and need to compromise. Where the foot in the door pulls you in with tiny yeses, the door in the face hits you with a huge no first, just to make the real target look reasonable. In 1975, Robert Cialdini and his colleagues ran a simple test. They asked students if they would volunteer as counselors for troubled youth for 2 years, several hours a week, unpaid. Almost everyone refused. The request was too big. Then, as if backing off, the researchers asked a smaller favor. "Would you at least be willing to take the kids to the zoo for 1 day?" This time, compliance rose sharply compared to a group that was only asked to do the zoo trip with no huge request before it. The first request was not meant to succeed. It was meant to set up the second one. This tactic uses your social wiring against you. When you say no to something big, especially face-to-face, you feel a subtle sting of guilt. It sits in the body as tension, awkwardness, a sense that you have been harsh or selfish. Humans are built to care about social balance. You do not like to feel that you have taken without giving or rejected someone too strongly. Manipulators know this, so they design a first request that almost forces you to refuse. Then, before the tension can fade, they offer a smaller request that looks like a fair middle ground. You feel relief. You feel less guilty. You agree. This feels like compromise, but it is not. The person who uses door in the face has no interest in the first giant ask. That was never the real goal. The real target was the second request all along. By backing down from the extreme position, they appear flexible and reasonable. They invite you to be flexible in return. Social norms say that when someone gives something up, You should too. This is called the norm of reciprocity in negotiation. You feel pressure to match the concession. In daily life, this can show up in a boss who says, "Can you work both Saturday and Sunday on this project?" You say no, that is too much. After a dramatic pause, they say, "All right, how about just Sunday then?" Now Sunday feels like a compromise, even though working Sunday was their real goal. Or a salesperson might start by offering a very expensive package, wait for you to reject it, then offer a slightly cheaper plan. The second price is still high, but compared to the first, it seems fair. You walk away believing you bargained well, when you actually paid exactly what they wanted. The door in the face also plays on your need to see yourself as fair and reasonable. If you say no to both the extreme and the moderate request, you may feel like you are being difficult. The manipulator will often add soft pressure. "I am really trying to meet you in the middle here," or "I totally understand your limits. That is why I am asking for less now." They frame themselves as the one who compromised first. Now, your refusal to meet them halfway clashes with your self-image as a balanced, kind person. To fix that inner conflict, you bend. Studies on concession and compliance show that simply being given the chance to say no first can make people more likely to say yes after. That first no is not a safe victory. It is part of the script. A skilled person will make the opening request just high enough to be rejected, but not so insane that it looks like a game. It has to be believable, so that their move down to the smaller request seems sincere. That fake sincerity is what activates your guilt and your urge to return the favor. In relationships, this tactic becomes a tool for control wrapped in emotional language. A partner might say, "Can you stop talking to all your male or female friends?" You push back. It sounds extreme. They then sigh and say, "Fine, just stop talking to the ones I am most insecure about." Suddenly, you feel like they compromised and met you where you are. In reality, they dragged your boundary far past where it used to be. Or a family member might ask for a large sum of money you cannot give. When you refuse, they ask for a smaller sum. You feel pressured to help with the second amount because you imagine they are suffering and have already reduced their needs for you. The script is effective because it uses your compassion as the fuel. Toxic bosses use it to stretch your limits without you noticing. They might demand that you finish a huge project by tomorrow. You protest that it is not realistic. They reply, "Then at least give me half of it by tomorrow." You agree because it sounds more realistic, and you feel you have been heard, but you have still accepted an unhealthy workload. Over time, this pattern normalizes their unreasonable expectations. You stop noticing how far past your limits you have gone, because every step happened in the name of compromise. The darkest part of door in the face is that it can make you defend the very demand that hurt you. Since you feel you have met in the middle, you may later tell yourself, "It was fair, they did drop their first request." This story protects you from feeling used, but it keeps the manipulator free to run the same tactic again. Each time, your standard for what counts as large or small quietly shifts. The defense starts with naming the move. When someone makes a shocking request, then soon after offers something smaller, pause. Ask yourself, if they had only asked for the smaller thing from the start, would it still feel reasonable? Or does it only look fair in comparison to the extreme request? Strip away the first ask and judge the second request on its own. Ignore their fake concession. Also notice your own guilt. The moment you want to say yes just to stop feeling like the bad person in the room. Understand that your guilt is being used as a leash. You do not owe compliance just because someone pretended to retreat. Real compromise starts from honest needs and clear boundaries on both sides. Door in the face is not about that. It is about dragging you toward a position you never wanted, then making you thank them for not dragging you even further. 3. The power of because. Smuggling requests past your critical mind. In 1978, psychologist Ellen Langer ran a small experiment at a busy Xerox machine that exposed how easily the human mind can be tricked. People were waiting in line to make copies. Langer had an assistant walk up and ask to cut in line. When the assistant said, "Excuse me, may I use the copier?" only some people agreed. That makes sense. A stranger asking to cut without any explanation feels rude. But when the assistant added a reason, things changed. "Excuse me, may I use the copier because I am in a rush?" Now compliance shot up. People understood the reason and wanted to be helpful. So far, it seems normal. The strange part came next. The assistant tried another line. "Excuse me, may I use the copier because I need to make some copies?" That is not a real reason. It only repeats what everyone is already there to do. Yet people still agreed to let the person cut at a much higher rate than when there was no reason at all. Their brains did not test whether the explanation made sense. They simply reacted to the structure. Request plus because plus, something that sounds like a reason. The presence of the word because put their guard down. This is how the power of because works. Your mind uses shortcuts to save energy. One of those shortcuts is the rule. If a person gives a reason, the request is probably legitimate. Life would be exhausting if you carefully examined every explanation you hear in a day. So instead, your brain often accepts the package. They asked, they explained, so it must be fine. Manipulators know this. They use because like a key that opens doors that should stay locked. Think of how many times you hear lines like these. "Can you just sign here because this is standard?" "You need to finish this today because the system requires it." "You have to be there because it is important." The reason is vague, circular, or empty, but the structure is in place. The word because signals to your mind that a justification has been given, and your critical thinking often stops right there. You feel a mild sense of understanding, even if nothing real was explained. Psychologists call this kind of mental shortcut heuristic processing. When you are tired, distracted, stressed, or in a hurry, you rely on simple signals instead of careful thought. The presence of a reason, any reason, acts as one of those signals. You only slow down to inspect it when it clearly clashes with your values or when the cost is huge. For small and medium requests, the lazy part of your brain says, "Close enough, just go along." A skilled manipulator tries to keep their requests in that middle zone where you will not invest the effort to question them deeply. This is why official-sounding language is so common in manipulation. Phrases like "because of protocol," "because of company policy," or "because this is how it is done" are often used to shut down discussion. They carry an air of authority without giving any real information. You may accept them because they sound legitimate, and you do not want to look ignorant or difficult by asking for more detail. In truth, you have agreed to something based on a hollow explanation. In dark hands, the power of because becomes a tool to silence doubt and keep you obedient. A controlling partner might say, "You should not tell anyone about our fights because it would cause unnecessary problems." The phrase "unnecessary problems" feels serious, but it is also vague. It does not answer problems for who and why. A manipulative boss might say, "You need to stay late because we cannot afford any delays." That sounds urgent and responsible, but offers no hard facts. How bad would a small delay be? Is this truly critical or just convenient for them? They do not want you to ask those questions. Even more dangerous are reasons that turn your values against you. Someone might say, "You should help me because you are a good friend," or "sign this because it shows you are loyal." The actual request might be unfair, risky, or dishonest, but your brain jumps straight to the value that is named. You want to see yourself as loyal, caring, or good, so you feel pressure to obey. The fake reasoning is not about facts. It is about pulling your identity into the decision. Once you understand how this works, you may start to notice a small shift inside yourself. Every time you hear the word "because," a part of you can wake up instead of falling asleep. That word becomes not a signal to relax, but a signal to inspect. Does the reason explain anything real? Does it answer why in a clear, specific way? Or is it just noise designed to give you a feeling of understanding without real clarity? A healthy reason usually has details and can survive questions. Because we need to submit the report by 5 p.m. to meet the client contract is more informative than because the system needs it. Because sharing this would break the promise of confidentiality we made is different from because it would cause trouble. When someone is acting in good faith, they might not love being questioned, but they can explain more if you ask. A manipulator will get vague, irritated, or push emotional buttons when their weak because is challenged. Notice also how often the power of because is used in small daily interactions to push you toward default choices. Marketing phrases like "because everyone loves it" or "because you deserve this" try to slide into your thoughts without resistance. They do not really tell you anything. They try to attach a feeling to a request. Click this, buy this, agree to this, not because it is right for you, but because the sentence sounds complete. The defense against this tactic is not complicated in theory, but it is hard in practice because it asks you to slightly slow down. You do not need to fight because you hear. You do not need to argue over every tiny favor, but you can choose certain situations where you will not let the shortcut run your life. For example, anytime someone asks for your money, your time, your silence, or your loyalty, and they give a reason that feels thin, you can pause, repeat their because, back to them in your own words. See if it still sounds solid. If it does not, ask a follow-up question, or say you need more information before deciding. This small habit creates a gap between the automatic response and the chosen response. It teaches your brain that the shape of an explanation is not enough. You want real content. Over time, manipulative people will find you harder to handle. They depend on minds that switch off at the sound of because. You are teaching your mind to do the opposite. 4. Reciprocity. Norm. Turning your gratitude into a leash. Across almost every culture on Earth, there is an unwritten rule. If someone does something for you, you should do something for them. It does not have to be equal in money or effort, but the balance should feel fair. When the balance tilts too far to one side, most people feel uneasy. That rule is called the norm of reciprocity, and it is one of the strongest social forces shaping human behavior. It is also one of the easiest to abuse. Psychologists and anthropologists believe this rule grew out of survival needs. In small groups, people had to share food, tools, and protection. If someone kept taking and never giving back, they threatened the group. That person could be pushed out, left without support, and might not survive. So the human brain developed a strong reaction to unreturned favors. Even today, if you receive help and do not give anything back, you may feel guilty, ashamed, or worried that others will see you as selfish. Manipulators do not need to understand the science to use this against you. They only need to know that if they do something for you first, your own sense of obligation will push you in the direction they want. Robert Cialdini described a famous study that shows this very clearly. In the experiment, a participant thought they were doing a simple rating task with another person. During a break, that other person left the room. Sometimes they returned empty-handed. Other times they came back holding 2 sodas and casually said something like, "I got this for you." Later, that same person asked the participant to buy some raffle tickets. People who had received the small, unexpected soda bought far more tickets than those who had not. The cheap drink created a powerful sense of debt. The stranger did not push, threaten, or argue. The participant felt pulled by their own desire to repay the favor. This is the core of dark reciprocity. The favor is not really a gift. It is bait. The person giving it is already thinking about how to cash it in later. A small, unasked-for kindness plants a hook in your mind. When they tug on that hook with a request, you feel pressure that comes from inside you. Refusing does not just feel like turning down a task. It feels like being ungrateful. You can see this in sales, both on the street and in big companies. A salesperson might offer a free sample, extra service, or special discount just for you. You feel noticed and treated well. Later, when they ask you to sign a contract, upgrade a plan, or buy a larger package, saying no feels a little harder. Part of you does not want to disappoint the person who was so nice. In truth, that niceness was a tool. The cost of the freebie was built into their plan from the start. The same pattern happens in workplaces. A manager might cover for you once, put in a good word with their boss, or give you a chance nobody else got. They may not ask for anything right away. They let the sense of debt grow. Then, when they need someone to stay late, take on extra tasks, or stay silent about something shady, they remind you, "Remember when I helped you? I went out of my way for you." The message is clear. You owe me. Your future compliance feels like repayment, not exploitation. Research shows that people often repay much more than the original favor is worth. The strength of the debt is not measured in dollars. It is measured by the emotions attached to it. If you felt saved, special, or deeply grateful at the time, the chain around your neck is heavier. This is why some manipulators will actually create or exaggerate a crisis just so they can step in as the hero. They might cause a problem, then rush in to fix it, making you feel dependent on them. After that, when they need a big favor, saying no seems almost impossible. You are not just refusing a request, you feel like you are rejecting the person who rescued you. In personal relationships, dark reciprocity can look like love at first. A new partner showers you with attention, gifts, and acts of care. They help you with tasks, listen to your problems, and tell you how lucky you are to have someone who treats you so well. At that stage, you may feel overjoyed, but later, when they become controlling or demanding, they bring up everything they have done. After everything I did for you, this is how you treat me. Now your guilt becomes a leash. You stay longer than you want. You forgive things you should not forgive. You obey requests you know are unfair, because part of you believes you are in debt. Family can use this too. A parent might remind an adult child of all the sacrifices made while raising them. Each time the child tries to set a boundary, I gave up my life for you, and you cannot even do this small thing. The request might not be small at all. It might crush the child's needs, time, or finances, but the weight of years of care and sacrifice hangs over the decision. Instead of judging the request on its own, the person judges it against a long list of past favors, and they fold. The manipulation gets stronger when the favor was something you never asked for. Someone might push an expensive gift on you, insist on doing a huge favor, or volunteer for something you did not need. Later, they act hurt or shocked if you do not give them what they want. They may say things like, "After all I have done," even though no one asked them to do those things. This strategy traps your conscience. You did not choose the debt, but you still feel it. There is an even darker version, where the manipulator mixes kindness with harm. They may insult you, then comfort you, or break your trust, then do something amazing to make up for it. Each kind act after a hurt feels bigger and more intense. You cling to that kindness and feel grateful for being forgiven or taken care of. That gratitude then blocks your anger and makes it harder to leave or protest. You tell yourself they are not that bad because you remember the good moments so strongly, especially the times they helped you when you were down. Those moments become chains. Protecting yourself from this tactic does not mean refusing all kindness or becoming a cold person. It means changing how you handle the feeling of debt. First, notice when a favor makes you feel pressured instead of simply thankful. Healthy generosity does not come with an invisible bill. If someone brings up past favors every time they want something, that is a sign they did not give freely in the first place. Second, remember that you are allowed to repay in ways that match your values, not their demands. Just because someone gave you something does not mean you must give them whatever they ask. If a colleague helped you with a project, you might help them when they are stuck, not lie to protect them from the consequences of breaking rules. If a partner once supported you during a hard time, you can still say no when they request something that harms you. Third, pay attention to unwanted or oversized favors. If a person keeps doing big things for you without being asked, and then seems angry or hurt when you do not meet their unspoken expectations, pull back. You can say clearly, "I appreciate what you did, but I did not ask for it, and I cannot agree to what you want now." This may feel harsh, but it protects your freedom to choose. Finally, remember that time spent, love given, or money shared in the past does not give someone the right to control your future. Gratitude is healthy. Guilt-based obedience is not. The norm of reciprocity helped small groups survive a long time ago. Today, manipulators turn that same instinct into a leash. Your task is to feel the pull of that leash, notice who is holding it, and decide for yourself whether to let them. 5. Social proof. The illusion of consensus that silences your doubt. In the 1950s, psychologist Solomon Asch ran a simple experiment that showed how easily people betray their own senses just to stay with the group. Volunteers sat in a room with several other people and were shown a card with a line on it, then another card with 3 lines of different lengths. Their task was to say which line on the second card matched the first in length. The answer was obvious. When people answered alone, they almost never made mistakes. But in the real test, everyone else in the room was secretly working with the experimenter. On certain rounds, those people all gave the same wrong answer out loud. The true volunteer usually answered after them. Faced with a clear conflict between their own eyes and the group, many volunteers went along with the group and gave the wrong answer too. They later admitted they had doubted themselves and did not want to stand out. That is social proof in action. When you are uncertain about what is true, safe, or acceptable, you naturally look at what others are doing and use that as a guide. If everyone around seems calm, you assume there is no danger. If everyone acts excited about something, you assume it must be good. If everyone buys a product, joins a cause, or supports a leader, it feels risky to be the odd person out. This instinct helped humans survive in the past by following the group away from threats and toward resources. Today, it can turn your own judgment into something you quietly ignore. Psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley found another dark side of social proof in their studies on bystander behavior. In one experiment, a person sat alone in a room filling out a form when smoke started coming in under the door. Many people got up quickly and reported the problem, but when the person was placed in a group where others had been instructed to ignore the smoke and remain calm, the results changed. Surrounded by people doing nothing, many volunteers sat there, coughed, looked around nervously, and still did not move. Their eyes saw a possible emergency. Their body felt tension, but their brain looked at the group and decided, if no one else is reacting, maybe it is fine. In real life, this same effect has contributed to people ignoring fights, assaults, and accidents in public places. Each person looks to others for a signal, and the common silence freezes them all. Manipulators use this mental habit on purpose. They know that if they can shape what looks normal around you, they can shape what you accept. A salesman fills a website with fake 5-star reviews and glowing comments. A social media account uses bots or bot followers to create the image of huge popularity. A speaker plants people in the crowd to nod, laugh, and clap at the right moments. A cult leader seats loyal members up front so that new people see rows of eager faces. Once you see what looks like agreement, your private doubts start to feel like a problem. You do not want to be the only person who does not get it, so you lower your guard. This happens in quieter, everyday ways too. In workplaces, a boss might say, "Everyone else is fine with this plan," even if that is not true. In families, a relative might say, "Nobody else thinks like you," or "The whole family agrees." In relationships, a controlling partner might claim, "All my exes said I was a great partner," or "Everyone thinks you are overreacting." None of these claims may be accurate, but if you accept them as real social proof, you may start doubting your own view. It no longer feels like you see something wrong. It feels like you are the only one who sees it, which is far more uncomfortable. The reason this works so well lies deep in your brain and your past. For most of human history, being rejected by the group could mean death. People needed others to hunt, share food, protect children, and defend against enemies. Being alone meant being weak. Even now, brain scans show that social rejection activates some of the same neural areas involved in physical pain. The mind treats exclusion as a serious threat. That pain is what social proof leans on. When you see or believe that everyone thinks a certain way, the fear of being the outsider pushes you toward conformity, even if a quieter part of you disagrees. Modern technology has turned this ancient fear into a powerful control tool. Numbers on screens feel like proof. Views, likes, followers, shares, ratings. You see a restaurant packed with people and assume it must be good. You see a video with millions of views and assume it must be worth watching. You see a belief repeated over and over online and assume it must be common sense. But those signals can be faked or manipulated. A product can be hyped by paid influencers. A harmful idea can be pushed by coordinated accounts. A leader can inflate crowd sizes and online support. What you see as what everyone thinks might actually be what a small determined group wants you to think everyone thinks. In high-pressure groups, social proof can completely drown out personal judgment. In cults, nearly all members act devoted in public, sing praises and repeat the same lines. A new member sees constant signs of loyalty and begins to believe their private doubts mean something is wrong with them, not with the group. In toxic work cultures, if everyone laughs at the boss's cruel jokes or stays silent when someone is mistreated, a new employee quickly learns that speaking up would make them stand out. Silence and pretending to agree feel safer than honesty. There is also a softer version in ordinary friend groups and classrooms. If a teacher favors a student and others go along with it, anyone who notices the unfairness may feel pressure to stay quiet. If a group of friends mocks someone, the person who dislikes this behavior feels the tension between values and belonging. Social proof says, "This is what our group does," challenging that risks becoming the new target. So many people keep their head down and join in, or at least do not resist. To defend yourself, you first need to notice when your discomfort shifts from, "I think this is wrong," to "maybe I am the only person who thinks this." That second thought is where social proof starts to crush your voice. When you hear phrases like "everyone," "nobody," "all of us," treat them as warnings. Ask yourself, who exactly can this person really know what all these people think? Look for direct evidence, instead of accepting vague claims. Next, separate what you see with your own eyes from what you are told. If a salesperson says, "All our customers love this," but cannot show real detailed feedback, treat it as pressure, not proof. If a boss claims, "The whole team supports this decision," and yet nobody ever asked for your view, be suspicious. Social proof should not replace honest conversation. Another useful step is to find even one person who shares your doubt. Research shows that in Ash's line experiments, when just one other person in the room gave the correct answer instead of following the group, the true volunteer was far more likely to trust their own eyes. The presence of a single ally breaks the illusion of total agreement. In real life, if something feels off, quietly check with a trusted person outside the situation. You may find that your concern is not as rare as it seems. Even if others choose to stay silent, knowing that you are not alone can strengthen your ability to say no. Also remember that popularity does not equal truth or goodness. Many harmful ideas, trends, and leaders have been wildly popular at different times. Crowds can be wrong. Reviews can be bought. Loud voices can drown out wiser ones. When a choice matters for your safety, money, body, or values, use social proof as one piece of information, not the main judge. Ask yourself, if I ignore what others appear to be doing, does this still make sense to me? Finally, pay attention to how you act when you are the everyone else in the room. Your silence, your nod, your fake agreement can become social proof for someone who is already unsure. Refusing to join in bullying, unsafe behavior, or unfair rules not only protects your own mind, it weakens the illusion of consensus that manipulators depend on. Social proof is not evil by itself. It helps people learn from each other and avoid danger without testing everything alone. But in dark hands, it becomes a cage built out of other people's faces and fake numbers. The key is to remember that you always have at least two sources of information: what others seem to be doing and what your own senses and values tell you. The more serious the decision, the more weight your own view deserves, even if the crowd goes the other way. Scarcity principle: hijacking your fear of loss and exclusion. Your brain does not treat gains and losses the same way. Losing $20 hurts more than finding $20 feels good. This imbalance has been shown again and again in research by Daniel Kahneman, Amos Tversky, and many others. They call it loss aversion. The mind reacts more strongly to what might be taken away than to what might be added. The scarcity principle takes advantage of this. When something seems rare, limited, or about to disappear, your fear system lights up. Suddenly you are not calmly deciding what you want. You are fighting not to lose. Robert Cialdini and other researchers found that simply telling people that a product is in short supply makes them want it more, even if nothing else about it changes. The same object becomes more attractive just because access feels limited. This makes sense in ancient terms. In early human groups, rare resources could mean survival. status, and chances to pass on genes. Scarcity meant value. Your nervous system still runs that old program. Manipulators feed it false inputs on purpose. You see this every day in marketing. A website flashes messages like, "Only 3 left in stock," "Sale ends tonight," "Last chance," "Almost sold out." A real estate agent says, "There are other buyers very interested, so this will not stay on the market." A coach or course seller writes, "Limited seats, application only. I may never offer this again." These phrases may or may not be true. The goal is the same regardless of reality. They want you to feel that if you pause, think, or compare options, you will miss out forever. Fear of missing out can push you to click buy, sign, or agree long before you have checked whether you actually want or need what is being offered. At a deeper level, scarcity connects to status and belonging. Being chosen for something exclusive can make you feel special. Getting access to an inner circle feels powerful. Social groups use this by creating levels, memberships, and invite-only spaces. The more restricted it feels, the more some people want it. A manipulator may hint that you are one of the few who is allowed to see behind the curtain, or that not everyone is ready for what you are being given. Your desire not to be left out of something rare becomes a lever on your choices. Dark relationships use a different type of scarcity. Emotional scarcity. Instead of limiting objects or chances, they limit love, attention, and approval. At the start, a partner may flood you with affection, messages, and praise. You feel full, seen, and safe. Then they begin to pull back without warning. Calls slow down. Affection becomes unpredictable. Sometimes you are treated wonderfully. Other times you are ignored or criticized. This pattern mirrors what B.F. Skinner studied in animals: variable reward schedules. When rewards come at random times, behavior becomes very persistent. The person chases the next good moment even harder. In a relationship, this means you may work more, please more, and sacrifice more just to bring back those early moments of warmth. Love feels scarce. You start to fear that if you stop trying, you will lose it completely. Control freaks and narcissistic bosses do something similar at work. They give rare approval, rare praise, rare chances. One day you are their favorite, the next you are treated as if you barely exist. Any positive feedback feels precious. You become willing to accept more stress, more tasks, and more mistreatment, just to avoid losing your small share of their approval. The scarcity of kindness turns into a tool for control. Manipulators also use imaginary future scarcity. Lines like, "You will never find someone like me again, nobody else will want you," or "This is your only chance to prove yourself," are meant to trap you in fear of a lonely or failed future. They paint a world where leaving them or saying no to them means endless regret and emptiness. Even if you know this is probably untrue, the emotional picture can still sting enough to keep you in place. Another powerful mix is scarcity plus competition. A person might say, "There are many others who would kill for this spot," or "Many people want to be close to me." They imply that you are easily replaceable and that your access is fragile. This can push you to perform, hurry, and comply so you do not lose your place in line. The fear is not just about losing the thing, it is also about being beaten by others, which can trigger pride and insecurity at once. In high-pressure environments, scarcity becomes a script for obedience. Managers and leaders may say things like, "There are hundreds of people who would take your job if you do not want it," or "If you do not hit this target, you are done here." They frame your position as barely secure. The message is, "You are lucky to be here at all, so you should take whatever is asked." This keeps people quiet about unfair pay, unsafe conditions, or abuse, because they are afraid that any protest will make them lose the scarce resource, the job. The same happens with visas, housing, and other crucial needs. A landlord might say, "So many people want this place, I can easily find someone else," just to stop you from asking for repairs or fair terms. An immigration lawyer might push unnecessary services by saying, "If you do not act now, you may never get another chance." When something feels scarce and essential, you will tolerate much more discomfort to keep it. The first defense against the scarcity principle is simple to say and hard to do. Slow down. Scarcity feeds on urgency. It wants you to feel that any delay equals permanent loss. When you notice phrases like "last chance," Only a few left. Or you might never get this again. Treat them as alarms that tell you to pause. Remind yourself that if a deal or offer cannot survive a day of thought, it is probably not as valuable as it looks. Next, separate the object from the access. Ask yourself, if this product, person, or opportunity were always available, would I still want it this much? If the answer is no, then your desire is mainly a reaction to scarcity, not a true fit with your needs. You do not need to obey every panic signal your brain sends about missing out. Many chances in life come back in different forms. Very few doors are truly the last door you will ever see. Also, question the source of the scarcity. Is there real evidence that something is limited, or is it just words? For example, a physical item in a store with clear stock levels may actually be running out. A digital course claiming only 50 seats, when more seats cost nothing to provide, is probably using fake limits. When a person claims that no one else will ever love or hire you, ask yourself what facts they have to make such a huge claim. Usually the answer is none. In relationships, pay attention to patterns of emotional scarcity. If someone gives care and affection only when you are behaving exactly as they want, and pulls it away whenever you show your own needs or boundaries, they are using scarcity as punishment. Real love and respect might have ups and downs, but they do not depend on constant performance to avoid being cut off. You are allowed to step back from people who make you feel as if their basic decency is some rare prize you must earn every day. Finally, remember that scarcity can also exist inside your own beliefs. If you were raised to think that good partners, good jobs, or good chances are extremely rare, you may cling to the first thing that looks decent, even when it hurts you. You might tell yourself, nothing better exists for someone like me. That is internalized scarcity. The more you challenge those beliefs, meet different kinds of people, and build skills, the less convincing that inner voice will be. Scarcity is powerful because it rides on real fears of loss, of being left out, of not being good enough to find more. Manipulators turn those fears into tools to get your money, your time, your body, or your silence. You cannot erase the human reaction to limited things, but you can learn to recognize when that reaction is being poked on purpose. Take a breath and decide based on your values instead of your panic. Time constraints. Collapsing your judgment with manufactured urgency. When your mind feels rushed, it does not work the same way. Psychologists studying decisions under time pressure have found that people shift from slow, careful thinking to fast, automatic reactions. Daniel Kahneman describes these as two systems. The slow system is the part that compares options, checks facts, and thinks about long-term results. The fast system runs on habits, emotions, and quick shortcuts like go with what feels safe or do what stops this stress. Manipulators create fake urgency because they know it shuts down the part of you that might question them, ask for proof, or say no. You can see this clearly in sales situations. A salesperson says, "You have to decide before you leave, or I can only offer this price today." A website shows a countdown timer that restarts for every visitor, warning that the deal disappears in minutes. A caller claims, "If you do not confirm right now, we have to give this to the next person." These lines are rarely about real limits. They are designed to make you feel that time is about to run out, so your focus shrinks down to a single fear: if I do not act, I lose. In that state, questions like, "Do I really want this? What are the hidden costs? And what happens if I wait?" tend to vanish from your mind. Under time pressure, your attention narrows. The brain starts to care more about escaping the tension of the moment than about what will be best tomorrow or next year. Saying yes can feel like the quickest way to make the uncomfortable pressure stop. Studies show that when people feel rushed, they lean more on default choices, trust whoever seems confident, and avoid complex thinking. If the other person sounds sure of themselves and keeps pushing the clock, your stressed mind may latch onto their certainty as a relief. High-pressure sales teams are trained to use this. They often keep you in long conversations until you are tired, then bring in the deadline. They say things like, "My manager only approved this offer until the end of the day," or "I cannot promise this will be here tomorrow." They might shift the mood, sounding disappointed or urgent if you hesitate. The goal is not honest scheduling. It is to wear down your resistance until your need to escape the pressure is stronger than your wish to make a wise choice. Manipulators also use time constraints in service calls and contracts. An insurance agent warns, if you do not renew right now, you could be left unprotected. A company representative says, this is a limited review window. If you do not sign, you may lose your rights. These lines may mix facts with exaggeration or half-truths. What matters is the emotional effect. Waiting feels risky, so you sign even if you have not read or understood everything. In personal life, time pressure often comes tied to emotion. A partner might say, if you do not forgive me by tonight, we are done. Or if you cannot give me an answer right now, I will know you do not care. A friend or family member might insist, I need your decision immediately, and react with anger, tears, or coldness if you ask for time. Here, the threat is not about money or deals. It is about losing a relationship, starting a fight, or being seen as uncaring. That can push you into fast, fear-based choices that go against your deeper values. Controlling or abusive people often choose moments when you are already weak to add time pressure. They raise serious topics late at night, right before work, or when you are sick or stressed. Then they say things like, do not you dare walk away from this conversation, or we are not done until you agree. In those moments, your mental energy is low. You are not at your sharpest. Your main feeling may be, I just want this to end. So you agree, not because you truly accept what they want, but because you cannot handle more pressure at that time. Workplaces can turn urgency into a constant tool. A boss might drop a big decision on your desk at the end of the day with, I need this by 5, or send messages outside work hours expecting instant replies. Over time, the culture can teach you that anyone who asks for time to think is lazy or not committed. This makes it easier for leaders to push through unfair policies, extra unpaid work, or risky changes, because hardly anyone feels allowed to slow things down and examine them. Time constraints become even more powerful when combined with scarcity. For example, a course is said to have only a few spots plus an enrollment window closing in an hour. A partner claims you will never find someone like them again and threatens to leave unless you change right now. This double hit overloads your system. You are told that you are about to lose something rare and that you have almost no time to prevent that loss. In that mental state, long-term thinking almost disappears. All that matters is avoiding the immediate fear. Protecting yourself from this tactic starts with a simple shift. Treat forced urgency as a warning sign, not as proof that something is important. When someone says, you must decide right now, ask yourself a quiet question. Why are they afraid of me having time? If the offer, request, or relationship choice is really good for you, it should still be good tomorrow after you have thought about it, or after you have talked to someone you trust. You can create a rule for your life. I do not make big decisions under pressure. Big can mean choices about money, contracts, health, moving, jobs, or major commitments in relationships. When such a decision comes with a tight deadline, your default answer can be, if I truly have to decide now, then my answer is no. You do not have to say that out loud, but holding that rule inside gives you something solid to stand on when others push. There will be rare, real emergencies where speed matters, like getting out of physical danger, calling for help, or taking basic safety steps. But many situations only pretend to be emergencies. A sale ending, someone else's impatience, or a threat that they will be upset if you do not respond instantly is not the same as a fire. The more you practice telling the difference, the easier it becomes to stay calm when someone tries to use the clock against you. You can also learn small ways to buy time, even in hard moments. You might say, I need to think about this and I will get back to you tomorrow, or I want to read this on my own before I sign. If someone pushes, you can repeat calmly, I do not decide important things on the spot. Even stepping out to get water or use the bathroom can break the rush long enough for your slower, wiser thinking to return. Often a short pause is all it takes to see that the pressure itself is the main problem. Your body can help warn you too. Time pressure often shows up as a racing heart, tight chest, fast breathing, or a feeling that your thoughts are jumping around. When you notice these signs and there is no real physical danger around you, see them as signals that your mind is being pushed. Taking a few slow breaths and reminding yourself, this does not have to be decided this second, can reduce the panic and open space for better judgment. Finally, remember this, People who truly care about you and respect you might be eager for an answer, but they will not punish you for asking for time. They may say, "Take a day," or "Let us talk again after you have thought about it." They understand that your clear, honest decision is more valuable than a fast yes given under fear. When someone acts as if love, respect, or basic fairness depend on you making a snap choice in their favor, they are not inviting a real decision. They are testing how easily they can control you. Time constraints are powerful, because thinking well takes time, and pressure makes time feel dangerous. Manipulators turn that feeling into a tool. The moment you start to see any forced deadline as a bright warning instead of a command, you begin to take that tool out of their hands. I'll see you in the next video.